This is the story of Kofi. At only 10 years old, he had faced more suffering than many people see in their entire lives. He was raised on the busy streets of Accra by his father, a man who was mentally unstable. Kofi had no mother, no house, and no one to help secure his future. He was in school for only a short time before the kind man paying his fees left the country. Kofi was left feeling hopeless and forgotten, yet he was incredibly bright. One day, his life took a turn. He crossed paths with Lante, the son of a very wealthy woman, who attended the best school in the country, but struggled with his lessons. It was Kofi, the boy with no shoes, who lived by the gutter, who secretly became his tutor. But when Lante's powerful mother found out that a homeless boy was teaching her son under an orange tree, her reaction was shocking. A market woman shouted, "Dirty boy," I said, "get away from here." A splash of dirty water landed just by Kofi's bare feet. He didn't flinch. He was used to the insults. The woman at the Makola market stall yelled again, "Is this a place for rubbish? You and that crazy man should move before I pour more water on you." Kofi held his father, Agite, a little tighter. Agite sat by the gutter, talking to himself and drawing circles in the dust with a shaky finger. His cloth had slipped down, showing old scars and dirt, but he didn't seem to notice. He was in a world of his own. People walked by. Some stared. Some whispered. One man shook his head in pity and walked on. Nobody ever offered to help. Kofi was 10, but the harsh street life had made his spirit old. He no longer cried when people called him names like son of a madman or gutter boy. The pity in their eyes hurt more than the insults because it never came with a helping hand. Kofi imagined that his father was once a handsome man. On the few days when his mind was clear, Agite would sing old Ga lullabies and call Kofi his little chief. But these clear moments were rare and passed quickly. Most days, Agite didn't even know where he was. He would shout at his own reflection in puddles of water and run from shadows he thought were monsters. Kofi didn't have a mother, not even a picture of her. "Who is my mommy?" he had asked once. Agite had looked at him with empty eyes and said, "I don't know. The wind, maybe. The wind." That was the last time they spoke of it. They slept under an old, broken-down kiosk near the Kaneshi station. When it rained, they were soaked. When the sun was hot, they felt the burn. Their bed was a piece of flat cardboard. Kofi had forgotten what it felt like to have a dream. His only thought was survival. Every morning was the same. Agite would wake up screaming. Kofi would hold him close, whispering, "It's me, Papa, it's me." He would clean him as best he could with a rag and some water, then lead him to their usual spot to beg. His father begged while Kofi watched. That was their routine. People mostly gave them insults, but sometimes a few coins were dropped. "Papa, please don't talk today," Kofi whispered that morning, adjusting his father's cloth. Agite suddenly stood up and shouted at a passing trotro, "Where are my keys? You have them in your car." The driver honked angrily. Kofi felt his face grow hot with shame. He looked across the street and saw a schoolboy in a neat uniform who stared, then laughed with his friend. Kofi looked down at his own dusty legs and dirty fingernails. His stomach ached with hunger, but he was used to it. Even with all this hardship, he had a secret dream. He dreamed of being in a classroom and raising his hand. He dreamed of wearing a school uniform and writing in a fresh notebook. He dreamed of someone saying his name kindly, but who would pay school fees for the son of a madman? Still, Kofi hoped. He watched the children with their school bags and neat haircuts walk by, and he would whisper to himself, one day, he would sit in a real classroom. One day, his father would get better and know who he was. As he counted the few coins they had received, he heard a seller shout, "God, this poverty is too much." Kofi held his father's hand and whispered, Amen. It all began with a plate of wake-eye. Kofi was beside his father near the Agbog Blashi market, his stomach empty and aching. His father was having a quiet day, just rocking back and forth. Kofi then saw a man watching him from his food stall across the road. The man was kind-faced and stood behind a table with coolers of food. Kofi looked away, feeling embarrassed. A few minutes later, the man crossed the street. "What is your name?" he asked softly. "Kofi," he whispered. "And your father?" Kofi pointed to the man beside him. The man's expression softened. "He is sick?" Kofi nodded. "Have you eaten today?" Kofi didn't answer. The man held out a plate of food. "Here, eat." Kofi was hesitant. Strangers were rarely kind without wanting something. "Don't worry," the man smiled. "I'm not like the others." That was how Kofi met Uncle Ebo. The food was warm and delicious. That evening, Uncle Ebo came back with soap and a bottle of water. "Tell me your story, my boy," he said. Kofi told him everything about his father's sickness, the streets, and his dream of going to school. Uncle Ebo listened quietly. "Tomorrow, come to my food stand. You will help me wash the dishes. And I will feed you. Is it a deal?" Kofi nodded eagerly. The next day, Kofi went to the stall. He swept the floor, washed plates, and served customers. One day, Uncle Ebo found him writing numbers in the dirt with a stick. "Where did you learn that?" he asked. Kofi replied, "I watched the school down the road. I listened to the teacher." Uncle Ebo was surprised. "You have never been to school?" "I went for a few weeks once," Kofi said. "A man was paying, but he moved away." A week later, Uncle Ebo gave him a new notebook and some pens. 3 weeks after that, Kofi stood in the classroom of a local public school, a Denta community school, his heart beating fast. He was wearing a second-hand uniform Uncle Ebo had bought for him. It was a little big, but to Kofi, it felt like a king's robe. "Behave yourself," Uncle Ebo told him. "Make me proud." Kofi was brilliant in class. He answered questions faster than anyone else and learned poems after hearing them just once. The headmaster once asked, "Who taught this boy?" Kofi always replied, "Uncle Ebo." After school, he would return to the food stall to work. His reward was seeing Uncle Ebo's proud nod. For the first time, Kofi felt like he mattered. But just as his life was improving, everything changed again. One night during dinner, Uncle Ebo held up a brown envelope. "My brother in Canada has finally sorted out my papers," he said with tears in his eyes, "after waiting for so long." Kofi smiled. "So we are traveling?" Uncle Ebo's smile faded. "No, Kofi, just me." The world went silent. "What about me?" Kofi asked. Uncle Ebo sighed. "I have paid your school fees for this term. I have done all I can. Perhaps someone else will come to help you." 3 weeks later, Uncle Ebo was gone. The next term came. There was no one to pay the fees. The headmaster told him, "We are sorry, Kofi, but without fees, you cannot stay." Kofi waited outside the school gate for hours, hoping Uncle Ebo would return. He never did. The gateman finally told him to go home, but Kofi had no home to go to. The kiosk where he and his father used to sleep was now occupied by someone else. The streets had moved on without him. The only constant was his father, Agite, who was still lost in his own world. When Kofi found him that night and tried to take him to somewhere safe, his father slapped him, not recognizing him. Kofi sat beside him anyway. The next morning, he put on his uniform and went back to the school, begging to be allowed in. "Don't disgrace yourself," the headmistress said coldly. "This is not a charity. Get out." The gates closed in his face. Days turned into weeks. His uniform faded. His notebooks were ruined by the rain. He was no longer the smart schoolboy. He was just another boy on the street. He still had his mind, and he held on to that. He believed that one day things would have to change. Kofi couldn't stop himself. No matter how many times he was chased away, he kept returning to the schools. Every morning, he would go to the back fence of Benson Montessori School, a private school that looked like a palace. The students there wore expensive suits and shiny shoes. He knew he didn't belong, but he found a spot behind a large pawpaw tree where he could stand on a ledge and peek through a cracked window. From there, he could see the teacher and the chalkboard. Whenever the teacher asks a question, he would whisper the answers to himself, writing on scraps of paper he found in the trash. He always left before the final bell, but one day he was too slow. A teacher spotted him. "Hey, who is that?" she shouted. A student pointed and said, "It's that crazy boy again." The class laughed. The teacher came to the door. "What do you want?" she demanded. "I just want to learn," Kofi stuttered. "Please, I'll just listen from outside." "Are you mad?" she snapped. "Go and tell your father to pay school fees first, if you even have a sane one." She picked up a cane, and Kofi ran away, tears streaming down his face. He didn't give up. The next day, he found another school and listened from outside the fence. When the children recited lessons, he would whisper along with them. One day, a girl threw a small stone at him. "Go away! You are distracting us!" Another shouted. "He's mad like his father!" As if the pain wasn't enough, the school's afternoon security guard grabbed him. "You are always sneaking around like a thief," he accused. "I'm not a thief," Kofi pleaded. "I just want to learn." The guard pushed him to the ground and threatened to beat him if he saw him again. As he limped away, Kofi looked at the school, at everything he wanted but couldn't have. He sat under a tree and wrote math problems in the dust with a stick. That night, he looked at the sky and whispered, "God, why did you give me a brain if you were just going to lock all the doors?" The first time Kofi carried a tray of sachet water on his head, he thought his neck would break. The pure water business was tough. Older women pushed him out of the way, and bigger boys stole his customers in the Accra traffic, but he kept going. Every sachet he sold was a few more pesos for food for his father. One afternoon, a man gave him a 2 cedi note, but just as he turned to thank him, a bigger boy snatched the money and ran off. Kofi chased him, but lost him in the crowd. He sat by the gutter and cried. No one cared, and no one offered help. That evening, he went back to his father with a small loaf of bread. His father looked at him with a confused expression. "Who are you?" he asked. "I'm Kofi, your son," he replied gently. His father laughed. "My son is a king. He lives in the sky." Kofi smiled and fed him the bread, piece by piece, not taking any for himself. Later that night, when his father was asleep, Kofi found a broken piece of a mirror among the trash near them. He looked at his reflection. His face was dirty and his eyes were tired, but he knew his mind was still sharp. He asked himself, "What is 8 multiplied by 2? 16, he whispered, and a small smile touched his lips. No matter how hard life was, that fire inside him had not gone out. It was enough to keep him going. The next day, Kofi was back on the road with the tray of water he had gotten on credit again. His feet were sore, but his heart was determined. He was selling water, but he was chasing a bigger dream, a chance to prove that the son of a man with a troubled mind did not have to die on the streets. Kofi was not supposed to be anywhere near Legacy International School. It had high, polished gates with guards in smart uniforms. Children were dropped off in air-conditioned Lexus vehicles by drivers. The school's walls were brightly painted, and its windows shone in the sun. It was a school for the wealthiest families in Accra, not for a barefoot boy whose father lived on the roadside. But something inside Kofi told him to go closer. He had no money and no plan, but his eyes were full of a deep desire to learn. He snuck around to the side fence, where the bushes grew wild. He found a small opening near a drainpipe and squeezed through, his heart pounding loudly. He hid behind trees and flower beds, ducking whenever he saw a student or teacher. Finally, He found a quiet spot behind a large orange tree at the back of the school field. From there, he could see into a classroom through an open window. He crouched down, pulled a small pencil from his pocket, and started copying the words he heard onto a piece of a torn plastic bag. He was trying to sound out a difficult English sentence when a voice spoke from behind him. "You're the boy they always chase away, aren't you?" Kofi's heart leaped into his throat. He turned around to see a boy his own age standing there. His uniform was perfectly clean, and his name tag read, Lante. "I didn't mean any harm," Kofi stammered, stepping back. "I was just listening." Lante tilted his head. "Why?" Kofi was confused by the question. "Because I want to learn," he said simply. "You don't go to school?" "No. My father, he's sick. We live on the streets." Lante looked down at his own polished black shoes. "People laugh at me too," he said quietly. "They say I'm stupid, and that my mother paid the school to keep promoting me." Kofi looked up, surprised. "You?" Lante nodded. "I don't understand what they teach in class. I'm always behind everyone else, so I come out here to sit alone during lunchtime." After a moment of silence, Lante smiled. "Do you want to sit?" Kofi hesitated, but when Lante sat on the grass and patted the spot next to him, Kofi slowly sat down. Lante took out a textbook. "Can you teach me this? I don't get it." Kofi looked at the page. It was about basic algebra. He studied it for a second, then took the book. "Okay, look," he began gently. "The equals sign is like a balance. To find x, whatever you do to one side of it, you must do the exact same thing to the other to keep it from tipping over." Lante listened with wide eyes as Kofi explained it in a simple way. Within minutes, Lante was solving problems he had been stuck on all term. I get it," he gasped. "I finally understand." Kofi smiled shyly. "You're not stupid. And you're not just smart," Lante grinned. "You're amazing." They sat under that orange tree for more than an hour. When the bell rang for the end of lunch, Lante stood up. "Will you come back tomorrow?" he asked. Kofi hesitated. "They'll chase me away. I don't belong here." Lante's expression became firm. "Wait here." He ran off and returned a few minutes later with one of the school's security guards. "This is my friend," Lante said to the guard. "His name is Kofi. He will be here tomorrow during lunch. Let him in." The guard looked confused. "But he's not a—" "He is my friend," Lante repeated, his voice strong. "And my mother owns this school. Do you have a problem with that?" The guard blinked and said nothing. Lante turned back to Kofi. "Same time tomorrow, okay?" Kofi nodded, unable to believe what was happening. As he left the school grounds, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. That night, as his father sang to a broken plate, Kofi sat by the gutter and prayed. "God, I met someone today. He saw me. He didn't call me dirty. He listened. Please, let me see him again. Please, don't let this be a dream." For the first time in years, he fell asleep with a smile on his face. They met under the orange tree every single day. Kofi arrived barefoot in his old torn clothes, and Lante came in his neat uniform with a lunchbox full of food. Two boys from completely different worlds, but under that tree, none of it mattered. Their friendship grew quickly. Lante started to laugh more and pay attention in class. Not because the teachers were making sense, but because Kofi did. "Don't just read the words," Kofi would advise. "Read it like you're telling a story to your best friend." Lante's confidence grew, and his grades started to improve. One afternoon, Lante asked, "Do you have a best friend?" "You," Kofi answered immediately. Lante smiled. "Me too." Then his smile faded. "Kofi, what if my mother finds out? What if she says we can't be friends? Then you'll forget about me, Kofi said quietly. That's how it works. No, Lante insisted. I won't. She'll be angry, Kofi said softly. Rich people don't want their sons sitting with boys like me. My father begs on the road, Lante. Some people say he is cursed, and they think I am too. Lante leaned forward and whispered, You're not cursed. You're magic. Kofi stared at him, stunned. Yes, Lante said firmly. Who else can teach better than all my expensive tutors? Who else can make me laugh when I feel like crying? You're magic. That's what you are. They began to share more than just lessons. Lante brought Kofi a small notebook and even a pair of slippers, though Kofi was too afraid to wear them on the street. In return, Kofi told Lante stories about boys who found their dreams and about fathers who were healed by kindness. But they kept their friendship a secret. Lante didn't tell his mother, Naa Ayele, a respected and powerful businesswoman in Accra. He didn't know how to explain that his best friend was a boy who lived on the streets. One day, Kofi didn't show up. Lante waited under the tree, growing more anxious with every passing minute. He was about to run to the gate when he heard a voice. Lante. Kofi was there, panting and barefoot. I'm sorry I'm late. My father had a bad episode. He ran into the road, and I had to pull him to safety. Lante rushed over and hugged him. I thought you weren't coming. Even if I had to crawl, I would come, Kofi said. Lante pulled back and looked him in the eyes. One day, I'm going to tell my mother. I promise. What if she says no? Kofi asked, his voice filled with worry. Lante smiled, a fire in his eyes. Then I'll shout. Until she says yes. The morning began like any other. Lante sat in class, waiting impatiently for the lunch bell. The principal had praised his improvement in front of the whole school, but Lante didn't care. He knew the real reason for his success was Kofi. At exactly 12:35 p.m., he was under the orange tree, waiting. Suddenly, he heard the sound of expensive cars pulling into the school compound. Students and teachers stopped what they were doing to look. Lante's stomach sank. It was his mother. Naa Ayele never visited the school without notice. Just as he was trying to figure out what to do, Kofi appeared, smiling and barefoot. I'm here, he said. But Lante wasn't smiling. He was staring at the tall, elegant woman stepping out of the car. Is that? Kofi began. My mother, Lante confirmed. Kofi's smile disappeared, replaced by pure panic. I have to go, he whispered, but it was too late. Lante. Naa Ayele's voice was powerful and clear. She walked toward them, her eyes sharp and questioning. What are you doing out here? I was having lunch, Lante stammered. With whom? Her gaze fell on Kofi, who was trembling in his torn clothes. Who is this? Lante stepped in front of Kofi protectively. This is Kofi. He's my friend. He helps me with my schoolwork. He's the reason my grades are better. The silence that followed was heavy. Naa Ayele's eyes were fixed on the frightened boy behind her son. Who are your parents, child? She asked quietly. Kofi's voice was barely a whisper. I don't know my mother, ma'am. My father. He's sick. He stays by the roadside near Kaneshi. We don't have a home. Ayele's expression was unreadable. You are not in school? Kofi shook his head. Why? There is no one to pay the fees, he explained. Naa Ayele looked at her son, holding Kofi's hand like it was a lifeline. For the first time, her expression softened. She turned back to Kofi. I am not here to hurt you, she said slowly. Take me to your father. Please, ma'am. Don't punish him, Kofi pleaded. He is not well. I will stay away. Just don't hurt him. I won't, Naa Ayele said gently. I just want to see him. 30 minutes later, The convoy of cars stopped on a dusty street near Kaneshi. Kofi pointed. "He's there." A man sat on the sidewalk, rocking back and forth and laughing to himself. Na Ayele was silent. She got out of the car, walked over to the man, and crouched beside him. "Sir," she said softly. The man looked up at her, confused. Tears filled Kofi's eyes. "I am going to help him," Nea Ayele said quietly. "He needs proper care." She turned to her assistant and gave firm instructions to get the best psychiatric doctor on the phone immediately. Then she turned back to Kofi, whose heart was racing. "And you," she said, kneeling in front of him and placing a hand on his shoulder. "From today, you are not a homeless boy." She looked him directly in the eyes. "You have a mother now." Kofi thought he was dreaming, even as he was driven away from the street that had been his only home. He watched as his father was gently helped into an ambulance that would take him to the best hospital in Accra. He still couldn't believe it when Lante held his hand and said, "You're safe now." By that evening, Kofi had taken his first real bath in years and was wearing clean pajamas. The housemaids had also shaved his hair clean. Na Ayele introduced him to the household staff, who seemed surprised. "This is Kofi. He will be staying with us. Treat him with the same respect you give my son." The next morning, Kofi looked in the mirror, wearing a brand new Legacy International school uniform. He hardly recognized himself. "You look just like me," Lante said happily. "I feel like I'm in a dream," Kofi whispered. "You're not," Lante said. "My mother said it's real. You belong here now." "But I'm the son of," Kofi started. Lante shook his head. "No, you're the son of my mother now." That day, the two boys walked into school together. Students whispered, and teachers stared in shock. The boy who used to hide behind the fence was now walking through the front gate as a student. In class, Kofi was brilliant, answering every question. The teachers were amazed. Naa Ayele kept her word. Kofi's father, Agite, was given the best medical care. Kofi visited his father once in a week. Unfortunately, on prior visits, his father didn't recognize him and shooed him away, which made Kofi sad. Nevertheless, every morning he prays for his father to get well soon. One day, on his 6th visit to see his father looked at him with a moment of clarity and whispered, You are my small chief, and you look like the sky." Kofi burst into tears of joy. Kofi's new life took some getting used to, but his smile became brighter, and his laughter grew louder. He and Lante were no longer just friends. They were brothers. One afternoon, Nea Ayele called Kofi into her study. "I have been watching you," she said. "You have changed my son's life, and you have changed mine." She handed him a brand new tablet computer for his schoolwork. Kofi stared at it, speechless. "Thank you, ma'am," he finally whispered. "Thank you for seeing me when nobody else did." She placed a gentle hand on his head. "You were never invisible, Kofi. You just needed someone to look closely enough." That night, Kofi sat in the beautiful garden of the mansion under an orange tree. He looked up at the stars and smiled. "My name is Kofi," he whispered, "and I have a mother." He closed his eyes and said one last prayer. "God, you gave me everything I asked for and more. I promise I will not waste this chance." The boy the world had once called the son of a madman had become a symbol of hope. He was proof that with kindness and opportunity, any child can rise. The future had finally opened its doors, and Kofi walked through them with his head held high. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please subscribe, like, and comment to help me grow. See you on the next one.